Listen to me for a moment. I want you to picture the clock striking midnight on the very first day of 2025. Do you feel that energy stirring inside you, that small spark of hope telling you that this year will be different? Because I know some of you have spent too many seasons looking back, wondering if time has slipped through your fingers like sand. You've carried regret and disappointment, wishing you could rewrite certain chapters of your life. Deep down, you've asked yourself, is it too late for me? Can I reclaim those wasted years? I stand here to tell you God is not finished with you yet. If you're breathing, you have a purpose. If you can still dream, you have a path. There is no expiration date on what the Almighty can do. Maybe you have felt that the door of opportunity slammed shut. Perhaps you saw others surge forward while you remained stuck. You might have believed that broken relationships, failed plans, or missed chances were permanent losses. But friend, when God decides to restore something, He doesn't merely patch it up. He remakes it stronger, brighter, and more significant than before. Restoration means transformation, and transformation means hope. That's why I need you to lean in right now. Because the year 2025 isn't just another notch on the calendar. It might very well be the turning point for your life. For the next few minutes, I want you to keep your heart open, your mind focused, and your spirit ready. We're talking about 7 signs, divine indicators that your lost years are being restored. We're talking about regaining time you thought was gone, about walking boldly where you once stumbled. We're talking about a rebirth that only comes when we surrender our regrets to a higher power. The reason this is so crucial is because too often we get stuck in an endless loop of guilt and frustration. We think of the relationships that failed and blame ourselves. We recall the moments we could have acted, but fear or doubt held us back. That loop can cripple us, halting forward momentum. But there is a break in the cycle, and I'm convinced that 2025 holds a special promise for those willing to receive it. I get it. Life can be tough. You might look around and see chaos, confusion, reasons to doubt. You might even wonder if God hears you at all. Let me remind you, when everything seems broken, that's precisely when miracles can happen. You might be angry with yourself. You might be tired of trying to fix what seems beyond repair. But that frustration, that longing for change, is a sign your heart is stirring towards something greater. Sometimes, that feeling an ache in your soul is the very evidence that you're on the brink of transformation. So I need you to stand in faith right now. I need you to say, Wes, I'm ready for renewal. Yes. I'm open to the possibility that my failures can be flipped into triumphs. Because every wasted year can be turned into a foundation for something extraordinary. God wastes nothing. He'll use your pain, your missteps, your darkest nights to build a glorious morning. This topic matters deeply because we all wrestle with regrets. We all wish for second chances. And if we don't address that yearning, it can eat away at our spirit. It can make us cynical. It can turn our hearts cold. And it can strip us of the passion we need to fulfill our destiny. That's why we must talk about these signs. We need to identify them, to hold them close, to let them guide us. Each sign will show you where God is at work, where new doors are swinging wide open, where healing is taking place. I'm going to challenge you at times, push you to confront your own mindset, because ignoring these signs is dangerous. Ignoring them might leave you stuck for another year, or worse, an entire lifetime. We are not here to coast. We're here to live with intensity, with courage, and with expectancy for the miraculous. So fasten your seatbelt. Open your eyes. Open your heart. Let's dive into these 7 signs that God is restoring your wasted years in 2025. First, if you sense a sudden shift in your mindset, where negativity used to reign, you now find sparks of positivity trying to break through. This is a powerful sign. Pay attention when the usual voices of doubt in your head start taking a back seat. That's not an accident or a fluke. That's God beginning to rewire your perspective. It's like driving an old, worn-out vehicle for so long that you forgot what a smooth ride feels like. Then you sit in a brand new car, and suddenly you realize what you've been missing. That sense of clarity, that newfound positivity, that's the gentle nudge from above telling you it's time to shift from dwelling on the past to stepping into a hopeful future. Too often, we disregard that nudge. We assume it's just a passing thought, or we doubt ourselves so much that we let the negative voices overshadow the positive ones. But in 2025, it's time to let that spark grow into a flame. Let it become a bonfire of conviction that God is working in your life. Now, you might wonder, what if I've been negative for too long? How do I embrace this change in mindset? The key is to acknowledge it. When you catch yourself thinking, maybe I can try again, or perhaps I'm not too old, don't dismiss it. Speak life over that moment. Say, Wes, this is the start. I received this shift, because if you allow fear to dominate, you risk missing the very vehicle that carries you toward your destiny this year. Your mind can be the fertile ground for seeds of possibility. Think about a farmer who spent years planting crops in bad soil. Then one day he finds a fresh, fertile field. He can't hesitate. He plants immediately, trusting that the new field will produce a harvest. That's what your mind is becoming. You need to trust that growth will follow. If you don't, you'll keep circling in old patterns, unable to recognize the gift of a fresh beginning. But once you commit to nurturing that positivity, you're stepping in line with God's desire to restore your lost seasons. Let me give you a real story. I knew a man who spent decades convinced he had nothing to offer. He watched others succeed while he stayed in the background. One day, he felt a small shift. He woke up and instead of complaining about his circumstances, he said, "I will find a way today." That simple sentence was a game changer. Doors started opening, opportunities to learn, to serve, to grow. One by one, he stepped through them. And within a year, this man was leading projects, inspiring others, and reclaiming the time he had lost in self-doubt. He never realized how powerful his mind was until he finally let God transform it. So if you sense the slightest shift from negativity to hope, don't brush it off. Feed it. Water it daily. Thank God for it and watch it blossom. You'll find that the more you nurture that mindset, the more breakthroughs you'll experience. And let me warn you, if you ignore it and keep letting the old tapes play, you'll sink deeper into regret. You'll watch another year slip by, convinced you don't have what it takes. Don't fall for that lie. The example I gave you shows that transformation begins in the mind. And when your perspective changes, your life follows. That is the first sign of restoration. The moment you see it in your own thoughts, hold on to it like treasure. Then get ready, because it will pave the way for the next sign. And that next sign often looks like unexpected opportunities arriving at your doorstep. I want you to imagine for a moment you're standing in front of a house with 7 doors. You've been knocking on the same door for years with no answer. You've concluded that maybe there's no one home. Suddenly, a different door cracks open and a voice says, "Come in." That's how God's unexpected opportunities show up. They might not be the door you were banging on for so long. But if you're willing to notice, you'll see a chance you didn't expect. Maybe it's a phone call from an old friend inviting you to collaborate on a project. Maybe it's a job offer that comes out of nowhere. Maybe it's just meeting someone at a coffee shop who opens your mind to a business idea. These moments are not random accidents. They're divine alignments. They happen precisely when your heart is ready to believe that the impossible can still occur. Yet so many of us hesitate. We say, "This wasn't part of my original plan. I wanted something else." Listen, God's restoration often arrives in packages you didn't order. If you get stuck on how it should look, you might miss the gift that's right in front of you. Sometimes the path to reclaiming those wasted years lies in a direction you never thought to explore. That's because God is creative and expansive. He doesn't need to fit into our narrow expectations. In 2025, I believe new doors will appear, some wide open, some slightly ajar. Your responsibility is to be alert. When you see that glimmer of possibility, don't let fear keep you rooted in place. If you stay locked in a rigid plan, you'll choke out the very miracle intended for you. I knew a woman who spent her prime years chasing one career path only to be laid off repeatedly. She grew discouraged, thinking she had wasted her time, her education, her youth. One evening, she attended a gathering where someone casually mentioned a different field that needed her exact skill set. She hesitated at first. This wasn't the door she'd been knocking on. But she gave it a try. She took a training course, applied for a position, and found herself more fulfilled than ever. Within months, she was thriving in a way she never thought possible. She found deeper purpose, found new friendships, and realized that God had orchestrated a better path than she could have planned. If she had clung to her old vision, she would have missed the door that was actually open. So, my friend, if an opportunity surfaces that feels aligned with your gifts but isn't what you initially imagined, don't dismiss it. Test it, pray about it, and if it resonates with your spirit, walk through that door. But be warned, ignoring unexpected opportunities can lead to bitterness. It can make you feel like God isn't answering your prayers, while in reality, you're simply looking in the wrong direction. In 2025, if you spot something that seems promising, that piques your interest, or that nudges you gently toward it, have the courage to say, "Wes," or at least, "Let me explore." Because every open door could be a pathway to restoration. Every invitation might be the key to reclaiming years you thought were gone. Let that truth seep into your heart, and then get ready for the next sign that will confirm God's hand on your journey. Another sign you can look for is the presence of renewed or reconciled relationships. Relationships are tricky. They can be our greatest blessing or our deepest wound. When God decides to restore your wasted years, He often does it by mending fractured bonds or bringing new connections that make up for what was lost. Picture someone who's been isolated, carrying shame and guilt over past mistakes. Then one day they receive a phone call that says, "I forgive you," or "let's meet and talk." Suddenly, an old bridge is rebuilt. Or maybe they meet a mentor who guides them in ways they never had before. These scenarios are not coincidences. They're signs of God saying, "I see you, and I'm giving you the relationships you need to heal and grow." However, restored relationships don't just magically unfold. You have to be willing to own your part in any rift. You have to come to the table with honesty, humility, and an open heart. Sometimes it means apologizing for your own shortcomings. Sometimes it means offering forgiveness when the hurt still stings. Restoration is a two-way street. If you're not prepared to walk that road, you might miss the gift of deeper connection. This applies to family members you haven't spoken to in years, to old friends who drifted away, or even to colleagues and acquaintances you wrote off. In 2025, pay attention if you feel led to reach out, or if someone unexpectedly reaches out to you. That spark of reconciliation is God's way of saying you don't have to stay bound by old wounds. I recall a young man who had cut ties with his father for almost a decade. He carried anger and resentment in his heart, believing he had wasted so many potential father-son memories. One Sunday, he felt an overwhelming urge to send a simple text, "I miss you." That led to a conversation that led to tears, confessions, and finally forgiveness. Within a few months, they were catching up on all the lost time, bonding over shared interests, building the relationship they both longed for. The wasted years weren't magically erased, but they were transformed into a catalyst for something stronger and more genuine. That's what God does when He restores. It's not about pretending the pain never happened. It's about weaving it into a story of redemption. If you resist this sign, if you ignore that little tug on your heart, or dismiss the phone call from someone you've been estranged from, you may perpetuate the cycle of isolation and loneliness. You could look back another decade from now and realize you let pride or fear rob you of precious moments. But if you embrace it, if you decide to pick up the phone, write the letter, or accept the invitation to mend a broken relationship, you're stepping into God's plan for renewal. And that open heart will prepare you for the next sign, which is all about discovering a fresh sense of purpose and direction in 2025. When God restores your wasted years, a clear purpose often emerges like a sunrise piecing through a long night. Suddenly, you sense a reason to get out of bed in the morning, a new mission that propels you. You might find yourself passionate about helping others in a way you never considered. You might be drawn to volunteer work, to mentorship, or to using your gifts in a realm you've been overlooking. This surge of purpose is God's gentle whisper. Your days of wandering are over. I'm giving you a target. Aim for it. But yet too many people dismiss this sign because it feels unfamiliar or daunting. I've never tried that before. They say, or I'm not equipped to do this. But here's the thing, God doesn't always call the equipped. He equips the called. If you feel a pull toward a mission that resonates with your spirit and lines up with your moral compass, pay attention. That might be your avenue toward reclaiming the years you lost feeling directionless. This purpose, this newfound path, is often the very thing that redeems all the frustration and confusion of your past. Think of it like a broken puzzle coming together to form a picture that finally makes sense. A man I once mentored spent most of his adult life jumping from one job to another, never feeling fulfilled, always doubting his abilities. He thought his years were wasted. Then, in what felt like a random moment, he joined a local youth program as a volunteer. In that setting, he came alive. He realized that guiding teenagers, sharing his story, and helping them avoid the same pitfalls he fell into was his calling. He lit up with passion and discovered that every misstep he once regretted was now a powerful testimony that could inspire others. That's how God works. He transforms your regrets into a roadmap for serving others. But to tap into that, you've got to be willing to try what you haven't tried before. You must open yourself to the possibility that your purpose isn't necessarily what you envisioned in your younger years. If you brush off these new urges, you risk staying stuck in the same old cycle of questioning and aimlessness. But if you embrace them, you'll watch as the wasted years become the very stepping stones that lead you toward a destiny filled with meaning. Remember, discovering purpose is not a one-time event. It's a journey, it's daily choices, small steps, and listening for that still, small voice guiding you. Once you align your life with that calling, your eyes will open to the next sign God uses to confirm that your wasted years are being renewed, breakthroughs in areas you once deemed impossible. Sometimes, one of the strongest indicators that God is restoring your wasted years is a sudden breakthrough in a problem that's plagued you for ages. Think of a situation that's felt like a steel wall. No matter how much effort you throw at it, nothing changes. Then, out of the blue, a door cracks open and you see a solution forming. Maybe it's in your health, a sudden improvement, or a new treatment that finally works. Perhaps it's in your finances, an unexpected debt paid off, or a resource that helps you manage your money effectively. It could be in your emotional well-being, where you wake up one day and realize the anxiety that's dominated your life for years has lost its grip. These breakthroughs are not flukes or coincidences. They're messages that say, I am making all things new. But we have a tendency to second guess. We say, that can't be real. It's too good to be true. And by doubting, we sometimes sabotage our own blessing, or we hesitate to walk through the open door, insisting we need more time or more clarity. Let me remind you, if you've prayed and waited, and finally something shifts, don't talk yourself out of it. Don't let unbelief steal your blessing. When you see that crack in the wall, push it open. Because ignoring a divine breakthrough out of fear or cynicism can lead you right back into stagnation. I remember hearing about a couple who battled infertility for years. They tried every medical option, prayed every prayer, and were on the brink of giving up. Then one day they decided to explore adoption, not as a second best solution, but as a genuine calling to love a child who needed a home. Shortly after they began the adoption process, they received word from an agency about a little boy. And then, just days after bringing him home, the wife found out she was pregnant. Two miracles back to back. But they almost missed it because they were so locked in the idea that only one path could make them parents. By staying open and persistent, they experienced breakthrough in a way that surpassed their wildest dreams. Now, not everyone's story will unfold like that, but the principle is the same. When something shifts in a long, standing struggle, seize the moment. Let that momentum fuel your faith. Recognize that God is actively restoring what you thought you'd lost. If you turn a blind eye to these breakthroughs, you'll risk becoming jaded. You'll start believing nothing good can happen to you, and that's a tragic way to live. In 2025, keep your eyes peeled for that subtle or dramatic shift in an area you believed was hopeless. Embrace it wholeheartedly, and you'll find yourself moving on to the next sign, which involves a deeper personal healing that goes beyond mere outward blessings. True restoration of wasted years doesn't only happen in the external realm. It happens inside your soul. Another powerful sign is when you experience inner healing from old wounds, traumas, or regrets. You realize you're no longer triggered by certain memories, or that you've finally let go of the resentment you've clung to for so long. This inner transformation can be subtle. Maybe you respond differently to criticism, or you notice a sense of peace where you once felt turmoil. In those moments, God is telling you, I'm making you whole again. Because it's not enough to gain opportunities or mend relationships if your heart is still a battlefield. Real restoration means your spirit gets renewed so you can face tomorrow without the baggage of yesterday. However, you have to cooperate with that process. Healing isn't always pleasant. It can bring old pain to the surface, requiring you to confront what you've avoided. Some people run from it because it's uncomfortable. They'd rather bury their wounds than let them see the light. But in burying them, they bury the chance to reclaim lost years. I urge you to let that healing happen. If you feel the need to seek counseling, support groups, or pastoral guidance, don't hesitate. That's part of God's plan, too. It's not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of wisdom and courage. I knew a woman who carried bitterness from a betrayal that happened over a decade ago. It affected every relationship in her life. She missed birthdays, gatherings, and countless joyful experiences because she was stuck in a place of unresolved pain. One day, she broke down in tears, realizing how much time she had lost. She decided to seek help. With each step, therapy sessions, honest conversations, prayer, she felt the burden lift. Gradually, her perspective changed. She laughed more. She reconnected with family. She even discovered a new hobby that brought her joy. God was restoring the years that bitterness had stolen. So, if you notice that your heart feels lighter, or that you're finally addressing emotional scars, don't resist. That's a vital sign of restoration. Ignoring that sign can keep you locked in a cycle of fear and anger, robbing you of future peace. But embracing it can free you to experience life in a richer, more fulfilling way. And when your heart is lighter and your spirit is open, you position yourself for the final sign, the ability to dream again. This is when you start daring to envision the future, not with dread or caution, but with excitement and anticipation. That willingness to dream anew is like the exclamation point on God's restoration process. You might see yourself starting that business, writing that book, or launching that nonprofit. You imagine relationships blossoming, financial stability, and most importantly, a life where your experiences, both good and bad, serve a higher purpose. That's not delusion or wishful thinking. That's faith igniting your imagination. And let me tell you, once you can dream again, you'll realize that no years were truly wasted because every moment prepared you for this season of possibility. Now, if you stop dreaming, if you let cynicism creep in, you'll stunt your growth. You'll remain stuck in the rut of regret. But if you embrace this final sign, if you let yourself dream God-sized dreams, you'll find that 2025 can be the year you take bold steps toward fulfilling your destiny. You'll see how your past mistakes, your lost time, your hardships have all molded you into someone with resilience, empathy, and wisdom. You'll stand taller, speak more confidently, and encourage others who might be going through their own season of regret. Because your testimony of restoration can light a fire in someone else's life. Each of these signs, shifts in mindset, unexpected opportunities, renewed relationships, a newfound purpose, seemingly impossible breakthroughs, inner healing, and the ability to dream again are powerful indications that God is in the business of redeeming your lost time. Don't brush them off as coincidences. Don't let doubt rob you of your blessing. God is moving, my friend. And if you're willing to notice, to act, and to believe, you will watch every single wasted year be repurposed for something greater than you ever imagined. Let's gather these insights and drill them into our hearts. You see, each sign is not just a standalone miracle. It's a thread in the tapestry of your life. When you put them together, you see the pattern of a God who never leaves you stranded, who always has a plan to turn your mess into a masterpiece. Maybe you found yourself in some of these stories. Maybe you saw your own habits, your own fears, your own struggles. That's a good thing. Awareness is the first step to transformation. Because once you see where you are, you can choose where to go next. And I pray that you choose to go forward in faith, expecting that the best is yet to come. Let's recap everything to keep it locked in your memory. We talked about that initial shift in your mindset, a positivity that tries to break the chains of doubt. We saw the second sign, unexpected opportunities that pop up like gifts on your doorstep when you least expect them. Then we explored how relationships can be healed or newly formed, offering restoration in the most meaningful parts of our lives. After that came the emergence of a fresh purpose, the sense that maybe you're here for something bigger than you've been living for. Next, we addressed breakthroughs in long-standing issues, those steel walls that finally crack and let the light in. Then we arrived at inner healing, the beautiful process of releasing old wounds so your spirit can be free. And finally, we reached the pinnacle, the return of your ability to dream, to believe in possibilities beyond your present reality. When you stitch these signs together, they form a message that God is restoring your wasted years. Not in a superficial way, not just by adding a few positive moments to your life, but by reshaping your entire narrative. The lessons you learn from your setbacks become wisdom for your future. The tears you cried water the seeds of new growth. And the time that slipped through your fingers, it gets transformed into the exact motivation you need to seize the moment now. Every single thread of your story has a purpose. But here's the thing, this journey isn't passive. It requires your active participation. It demands that you grab hold of the signs and say, Wes, I see it, and I will not let it pass me by. If you're expecting to just stumble into restoration without any effort, you're likely to remain right where you are. God can open a door, but you must walk through it. God can change your mindset, but you must nurture that spark of positivity. God can heal a relationship, but you must be humble enough to seek or extend forgiveness. God can grant you a fresh vision, but you have to take the first step toward making it real. Restoration is a dance between the divine and the determined. It's heaven's invitation and your response. Now, as you stand on the brink of 2025, this new year that can mark a turning point in your life, I want you to make a decision. I want you to decide that you will no longer be held hostage by regret. You will no longer wallow in the mindset of, it's too late for me, or I've wasted too much time. If you keep echoing that narrative, you chain yourself to a past that cannot be changed. Instead, choose to say, I may have lost some years, but God will restore them. I will actively participate in this divine plan. I will keep my eyes open for these 7 signs, and when I see them, I will move. Because passivity breeds stagnation, but faith and action breed miracles. It's time to put the lessons into practice. And that means taking tangible steps. If you sense a shift in your mindset, start each morning with a declaration of hope. Write it on a sticky note. Post it where you can see it. If you come across an unexpected opportunity, don't dismiss it. Explore it. Pray about it. See where it leads. If you feel led to reconcile with someone, make the call. Send a message. Open your heart to the possibility of peace. If a new purpose tugs at you, dip your toes in those waters. Volunteer. Research. Talk to people who are already in that field. If a breakthrough appears in a persistent problem, celebrate it, share the testimony, and walk through the open door. If you feel the stirring of inner healing, seek the right support, invite God into your vulnerability, and let the process unfold. And if dreams start bubbling in your heart, don't you dare squash them out of fear. Write them down. Speak them aloud, and take one practical step toward making them real. You see, these steps are more than just actions. They are declarations of your faith. They are evidence that you believe your story is far from over, that the best pages are yet to be written. And let me promise you something. When you move with faith, heaven moves with you. Opportunities multiply, favor increases, and the once impossible begins to look probable. This is how transformation happens. It's not a one-time event. It's a continuous partnership with the divine. I want you to leave this moment with a fire in your belly. And I want you to carry that fire into every single day of 2025. When doubt creeps in, when you feel the tug of old regrets, remember this promise of God can restore the years the locusts have eaten. That is not just a verse. It's a living reality for those who believe. And believing isn't some passive mental exercise. It's an active posture of stepping forward in confidence, even when you can't see every detail. You step forward because you trust the one who can see it all. Let's be real, you might face obstacles. You might fall into moments of despair. You might question if anything is really changing. But that's where perseverance meets grace. You keep going because you know that each step, no matter how small, is leading you to the fulfillment of a grander purpose. You keep going because you realize that wasted years can become the launching pad for your destiny. You keep going because you understand that 2025 isn't just a date. It's a season of fresh potential, and you refuse to let it slip by like so many before. And so I leave you with this call to action. Embrace these signs. Live with your eyes wide open and your heart ready. When you see any indication that God is at work, be it in your thoughts, your opportunities, your relationships, your breakthroughs, your healing, Wes, say, I receive this and I will respond. Dare to dream beyond your limitations. Dare to believe that your latter days can be greater than your former days. Dare to imagine that the next time you look back at your life, you won't be filled with regret, but with gratitude and amazement at how every hardship led to a harvest, how every detour led to destiny, and how every loss was transformed into a lesson of triumph. You have what it takes. Because God is the one who supplies the strength. You have a future. Because God is the one who redeems your past, and you have hope. Because in 2025, you're not walking alone. You're walking with the power of restoration by your side. So stand tall, my friend. Lift up your head. Let that fire burn in your heart. Move forward and watch as every wasted moment becomes the foundation for something breathtaking. That's the promise. That's the invitation. And that's the reality waiting for you on the other side of your yes. Go live it. Go claim it. Go walk out the restoration that's already in motion. And when you see it unfold, don't forget to share your testimony, because someone else out there needs to know it's possible for them too. This is your year. This is your moment. Now take hold of it with everything you've got. And remember, God's plan is never late. He's always right on time. Step into 2025 with confidence and watch how those wasted years come rushing back in a glorious outpouring of redemption and renewal. Yes, it's your turn. Yes, it's your season. Believe it, seize it, and never look back.